Tell me, listener, have you ever felt a presence so vast, so breathless, that it seemed to watch you from the dark even before you learned your own name? I see your stillness. Do not fear it. Stillness is only the first veil of revelation. Draw nearer. Let the dim breath of this chamber fold around you like dusk gathering its wounded children. For what I am about to recount lies older than your pulse, older than the soil beneath your wandering feet, older even than memory itself. Before creation was spoken, before land dared rise from the eternal waters, there was but one, not a god of thundering rain or crown of flame, but a spirit so immense it needed no shape, a thought so ancient that time itself bowed before it. We call it the Great Spirit. But names are small, fragile things, cracking under the weight of infinite presence. Imagine instead a breath, a hush, a trembling awareness spread across a world that had not yet awakened. Have you ever stood in such perfect silence that the darkness seemed to lean toward you, as if waiting for your confession? That was the first night of existence. If night it could be called, when even the stars had not found their courage to burn. In that beginning, there was no land, only a boundless ocean, black as forgotten grief. And above it stretched a sky without a single witness, no bird, no cloud, no whisper of wind, only an emptiness so complete it felt almost holy. Yet the Great Spirit lingered there, not as ruler, but as watcher, tracing the endless waters with a sorrowful wisdom. For the Spirit knew that creation must not be born from command, but from companionship. Ah, listen, can you hear the first echo of that idea? How the vastness yearned not for dominion, but for harmony, a world built not through force, but through shared breath. The Spirit stirred. No sound, no flare of light, just a slight shivering of the eternal waters, like the first heartbeat of a body not yet formed. And from this subtle trembling came the animals, not summoned as servants, but awakened as collaborators, each fashioned from the Great Spirit's quiet longing for connection. Have you ever felt the faint brush of a presence that seemed to know you better than you knew yourself? That is how those first beings opened their eyes upon the world, not to serve, but to belong. The Great Spirit breathed through them, a sacred wind weaving through fur and feather, through scale and bone, as though whispering, "You are my hands, you are my echo. Together we shall shape what must be." But the world was only water then, cold, endless, mournful. And creation could not begin without land. The Spirit gazed upon the deep, its reflection stretched thin across the shifting surface, like sorrow trapped behind darkened glass. It wondered, who among my companions will brave the depths? Who will plunge into the unknown, seeking a fragment of earth where none has been? The animals answered, one by one, the strong, the swift, the noble, each diving into the abyss, each carried upward again by the weight of failure. Ah, but failure is a heavy word, is it not? You feel it, I can tell. That slight retraction of breath, that quiver in your gaze, as though a forgotten wound were stirring. Yet remember this, the Great Spirit did not despair. For creation was never meant to favor the mighty, and indeed, it was the smallest, humblest creature, the muskrat, who dove last. A frail thing, easily overlooked, its heart fluttering like a candle caught in a storm. But it did not falter. Down it plunged, deeper and deeper, past where light could follow, past where breath could comfort, past even where hope dares to linger. When it rose again, it carried, clutched within its fragile paws, a single grain of mud, a meager offering, you might think. Yet the Great Spirit took it with a reverence befitting the noblest gift ever given. From that grain, the Spirit shaped the first land, placed gently upon the back of the patient, enduring turtle. Slowly, silently, mournfully, the mud expanded, as though drawing breath for the first time, becoming plains and mountains, forests and caverns, an entire world blooming from humility. And so, this realm came to be called Turtle Island, a creation not born from dominance, but from unity. Not from divine decree, but from collective courage. Not from strength, but from sacrifice. You feel it now, don't you? That tug within your chest. A recognition, faint but unmistakable. For the Great Spirit's first lesson echoes even through your bones. The small may shape the vast. The silent may give birth to the world. The forgotten may hold the power to resurrect creation. This is why I tell you this tale in whisper and shadow, for such truths are not meant for the brightness of day. They belong to dusk, to the trembling moment between breath and memory, between what you were and what you might yet become. Now, tell me, listener of dim corridors, what small and trembling part of you still waits to surface from the depths, bearing the first grain of your forgotten world? Have you ever imagined a world where nothing existed but water, vast, endless, and silent? A world in which the horizon was a promise yet unfulfilled, where the sea stretched into infinity and the sky hovered in watchful emptiness above it. Before the first land rose, before the first creature took its breath upon solid ground, there was only the endless expanse of water. In the cosmologies of many Native American tribes, this primordial ocean represents more than a mere absence of land. It is the embodiment of potential, of the unformed, and of a universe pregnant with possibility yet held in careful stillness. This world of endless water was not turbulent or chaotic, as one might imagine. It was a deep, reflective calm, akin to a mirror that held the weight of time itself. The surface of these waters shimmered with a soft, unbroken darkness, an expanse so vast it seemed to suspend even the notion of sound. In the stories told by the Ojibwe, the Muskogee, and the Cherokee, the pre-creation ocean was a place of absolute equilibrium, a silent womb, awaiting the spark that would give shape to life. Here, the first principle emerges. Creation is not merely an act of force. It is an act of patience, a deliberate unfolding of order from potential. The Great Spirit, known in Lakota as Wakantanka, and in other traditions as Gitche-Manitou, dwelt above this expanse. But the Spirit was not separate from the water. It was intimately entwined with it, like breath with the lungs. The Spirit observed the ocean's stillness, contemplated its depths, and recognized within it the quiet longing for form and life. It is said that the Spirit's gaze was not domineering, but careful, reflective, almost meditative. Here lies a philosophical truth central to Native American cosmology. The universe is not commanded into being, but coaxed into existence through awareness, attention, and reverence. Even before the first landmass emerged, the Spirit understood that life requires not control, but communion. Water, in these traditions, is itself a teacher. It is at once nourishing and enigmatic, gentle and unyielding. The pre-creation waters symbolize potentiality in its purest form, unshaped, untamed, and complete. In reflecting on these primordial oceans, one may consider the scientific parallel. Before life could flourish on Earth, the planet was indeed dominated by vast bodies of water. Geologists describe the Hadean and Archean eons, when the Earth's surface was largely molten or submerged, where oceans provided the medium for chemical reactions that would eventually yield the first cellular life. Just as the spirit surveyed these mythic waters, so too did nature's own processes unfold in patient, almost imperceptible increments. The parallels are uncanny. Both myth and science recognize that life emerges from stillness, from a medium capable of sustaining it, yet holding its secrets tightly. From the perspective of the Great Spirit, the waters were both a cradle and a challenge. Without boundaries, without land, there could be no dwelling, no rooted life, no flourishing of communities. Yet, in this challenge lay opportunity. Many creation myths describe the spirit observing, listening, and reflecting before acting. This reflects a deep philosophical observation. Creation is not an impulsive act, but a considered response to necessity. The spirit's contemplation of the water echoes the meditative process through which humans discern their own purpose. Attentive, reflective, and patient. The ocean, as described in these myths, is not silent only in sound, but in suggestion. It holds the memory of beginnings and possibilities alike. In its depths, one could imagine all seeds of life waiting to be called forth. All creatures yet unborn, all forms yet to find their shape. This echoes an important principle in Native American thought. The future is not imposed upon the present, but exists as potential, waiting for recognition and guidance. Similarly, in ecological philosophy, water represents both sustenance and restraint. It nurtures, it restricts, and it balances. Life, in all its complexity, arises only when these forces are harmonized. As the spirit contemplated the waters, a new idea emerged, that life requires participants. The water alone, infinite and still, was insufficient. It was in collaboration that creation would find its rhythm. The animals, the first companions of the spirit, would be the agents of transformation. In Ojibwe and Muskogee lore, these animals, muskrat, turtle, loon, and others, were the first messengers, the first witnesses, and the first actors in the shaping of land. The water would not yield its potential without effort, without intervention, without the agency of living beings. The philosophical undertone here is clear. Potential requires engagement. Even the most vast and fertile medium remains inert without action or partnership. The narrative emphasizes a continuity of purpose. The spirit's reflection, the vast waters, the animals' forthcoming efforts, all are linked by intention. One might liken this to the way ecosystems operate in balance. Oceans regulate temperature, currents distribute nutrients, and species interact in dynamic equilibrium. In myth, this balance is expressed poetically. Every being has a role. Every action is part of a larger plan. Every ripple of the water echoes into a chain of cause and effect. Nothing exists in isolation, a truth both mythic and scientific. From a sensory perspective, these waters are described with intense vividness in the myths. They shimmer like polished obsidian under a sky unlit by stars. They breathe in subtle undulations like the pulse of an enormous sleeping heart. Their depths are fathomless, hinting at mysteries beyond comprehension, yet their surface invites contemplation, reflection, and engagement. The sensory experience is continuous. The visual continuity of vast waters, the imagined soundless thrum, the tactile suggestion of coolness and depth, all reinforce the thematic echo of potential awaiting realization. This immersive imagery ensures that the listener or reader feels the weight of the pre-creation world. The Great Spirit's gaze remains a central anchor through this narrative. It is not merely a watcher, it is the guiding conscience of the universe, whose reflection and contemplation precede all action. The Spirit recognizes that creation must unfold gradually, that impatience can distort the harmony of emergence. Here is a philosophical insight. The universe, or any complex system, cannot be forced into shape. It must evolve in concert with its own intrinsic potential. Just as the spirit waits before calling forth land and life, humans too benefit from reflection, awareness, and attunement before attempting creation, whether artistic, social, or ecological. Eventually, the narrative moves toward the possibility of emergence, though the water remains dominant. The endless ocean is simultaneously a metaphor for both constraint and opportunity, a limit that defines the first acts of agency, a medium that holds the seeds of all future form. In myth, it is the domain from which land must be wrested, not violently, but through the courage and persistence of the smallest, most persistent actors: turtles, muskrats, and other creatures who dive into its depths. Philosophically, this underscores the principle that transformation, whether of matter, society, or self, requires deliberate engagement, courage, and respect for the medium in which one operates. Before the first land rose from the endless waters, before the forests stretched their branches or mountains claimed the sky, there was only the great expanse of water, vast, silent, and unbroken. The world was not empty, but it was incomplete, pregnant with possibility, yet lacking shape. The Great Spirit watched over this endless expanse, aware that the waters alone could not bring forth life. Something more was needed, something capable of action, persistence, and courage. This was the moment when the animals were called into being, not as mere servants, but as companions and collaborators in the work of creation. Among the first of these creatures was the muskrat, small and seemingly fragile, easily overlooked in the grandeur of the watery world. While larger and stronger animals had already attempted to bring forth land, they failed, their strength insufficient against the infinite depth of the waters. The muskrat, however, refused to yield. Time and again, it dived into the cold, crushing darkness, clawing and struggling against the weight of the ocean. Each failure only strengthened its determination, for it understood, instinctively, that persistence and courage mattered more than size or strength. In its tiny paws, it carried the first grains of mud, the seeds of land that would form the foundation for life. From this smallest of creatures, the first land began to emerge. The turtle, patient and enduring, offered its back as the bed upon which the new land could rest. It bore the weight without complaint, providing stability for the fledgling world. In many traditions, the land that formed upon the turtle's back became known as Turtle Island, a testament to endurance, humility, and steadfastness. The turtle did not seek recognition. It only remained faithful to its role, supporting the work of creation with quiet strength. Its contribution, though silent, was monumental, reminding all who listened that steadfastness and reliability are as vital as courage in shaping life. Other animals joined in the work. Loons, with their swift and graceful dives, explored the depths, seeking hidden possibilities. Otters swam tirelessly, carrying mud and fragments from one place to another, ensuring that each attempt built upon the last. Beavers sculpted and organized, establishing order amidst the new and fragile land. Every action, no matter how small, had meaning, and together the animals formed a network of effort that transformed the waters into solid ground. This was the first lesson of interdependence. No being exists in isolation, and the survival and flourishing of one depends upon the contributions of others. The Great Spirit observed, guiding and supporting, but never imposing. It allowed the animals to act with agency, trusting them to shape the land with wisdom and patience. Creation was not a single act of command, but a process of collaboration, a delicate balance of effort and intention. Each creature brought its unique strengths. Each contributed to the emerging world in a way that would not have been possible alone. The waters resisted, deep and unyielding, yet the combined courage and persistence of the animals overcame what had seemed impossible. In this dance between patience, determination, and collaboration, the first land was born. Beyond the practical act of forming land, the animals' efforts carried profound moral lessons. They showed that creation is never about domination, but about respect, partnership, and responsibility. Even the smallest acts, when sustained and purposeful, can transform the world. The muskrat, despite its size, demonstrated that courage and determination are more powerful than brute strength. The turtle, enduring without complaint, taught the value of reliability and humility. The story emphasized that greatness is measured not by appearance, but by persistence, intention, and contribution to the whole. Every act, no matter how small, ripples outward to shape the greater world. The myth also highlights continuity and collaboration. Each animal's effort built upon the others. The muskrat could not have succeeded without the turtle's patient support. The turtle's steadfastness found meaning only through the muskrat's daring. Loons, otters, and beavers added their unique skills, forming a chain of cooperation and interdependence. In this way, the myth reveals an early understanding of ecosystems and communities. Every being has a role, every contribution matters, and the strength of the whole relies on the actions of each part. Nothing exists in isolation, and the world itself is the product of countless small, coordinated efforts. As the first land took shape, mountains rose, valleys sank, and rivers began to flow. The ocean, once infinite and formless, now embraced the contours of the new world, surrounding and sustaining it. The animals continued their work, shaping and refining, ensuring the balance of land and water, stability and possibility. Their efforts transformed a silent, endless ocean into a dynamic, living world capable of supporting life in all its diversity. Through their courage, patience, and cooperation, they had transformed potential into form, darkness into possibility, and stillness into movement. The story of the animal's role in creation is not just about myth. It is a timeless lesson about courage, humility, and collaboration. Every action, no matter how small, has the power to shape the world. Greatness is not measured by strength alone, but by persistence, intention, and willingness to act in partnership with others. The animals remind us that the smallest hands, or paws, can leave the largest marks, that responsibility and care are central to creation, and that life itself is sustained through cooperation, patience, and respect for the forces around us. Even today, the echoes of this story can be seen in the natural world. Rivers carve valleys, forests grow in intricate patterns, and ecosystems thrive through the interdependence of countless species. The courage and persistence of the first animals is mirrored in the rhythms of nature, in the balance of life that sustains our world. Their story calls us to recognize the power of small, deliberate actions, to honor the contributions of others, and to understand that creation, in any form, is never a solitary act. It is a shared endeavor, built upon patience, courage, and collaboration. And so, the animal's story endures. From the muskrat's daring dive to the turtle's patient endurance, from the loon's exploration to the beaver's careful construction, each act shaped the world. The endless waters, once silent and formless, became a land of possibility, of life, and of beauty. The animals remind us that courage, humility, and collaboration are the foundation of creation, and that even the smallest effort, when joined with others, can leave an enduring mark upon the world. Their story is a guide, a whisper from the past, and a reminder that every being, no matter how small, has the power to shape the future. From the depths of the endless waters, shaped and stirred by the courage and persistence of the first animals, the world began to take form. The muskrat had returned from the abyss, clutching a fragment of mud, small yet potent, trembling with the promise of what could be. The turtle, patient and enduring, bore this gift upon its steadfast back. And in that delicate balance, the first land emerged, a hesitant rise from the dark, silent waters that had once seemed infinite. It was neither grand nor complete at first, but it was alive with potential, and in its quiet formation, the universe whispered the first lessons of growth, stability, and possibility. The land did not rise with thunder or force. It grew slowly, as though drawing breath, shaped by the rhythm of the waters and the careful guidance of the spirit. Peaks and valleys formed gradually, rivers etched themselves into the soil, and the first soils were nurtured into life-giving earth. The animals moved upon it, exploring, shaping, and steadying this fragile new world. Each step was both a discovery and a contribution, for the land was not yet fixed. It required patience, endurance, and careful attention. The emergence of the first land was not a singular act, but a process of delicate, continuous creation, a dance between spirit, animals, and the waters themselves. It is here that one sees the philosophical depth of these stories. The first land represents the principle that transformation begins in small, deliberate acts, sustained over time. Even the tiniest mud carried by the smallest creature can become the foundation of mountains, valleys, and rivers. The narrative of Turtle Island reminds us that beginnings are often modest, fragile, and dependent on cooperation, yet they hold within them the power to shape worlds. Creation does not rush. It waits. It unfolds. It grows with patience and purpose. As the first land stretched across the waters, it began to gain character and structure. Rocks and soil, shaped by the efforts of the animals and guided by the spirit, became hills, plains, and the earliest signs of forests. The waters, once unbroken and formless, now circled and defined the emerging continents. Lakes gathered, rivers meandered, and the land began to pulse with the first subtle signs of life. The process was gradual, almost imperceptible, yet each movement carried meaning, a reminder that patience and care are as vital to creation as courage and vision. The animals, having fulfilled their initial tasks, continued to explore the land, adjusting, shaping, and learning as they went. They planted the rhythm of ecosystems into this new space. Beavers created structures that guided water flow. Birds scattered seeds that would grow into the first trees. The muskrat and turtle maintained the fragile balance between earth and water. Through these actions, the land transformed from a simple fragment of mud into a complex interdependent system, a living proof that creation is sustained by collaboration, observation, and continuous engagement. This emergence of land also carries a subtle moral and philosophical lesson. Beginnings are often fragile, and their survival depends on vigilance, care, and cooperation. The animals teach that every role, no matter how small, contributes to the stability of the whole. The first land could not have risen from the waters without the muskrat's bravery, the turtle's endurance, or the careful contributions of every other creature. Likewise, human life and society rely on the interconnectedness of countless acts, choices, and responsibilities, each one forming the foundation upon which the next generation can build. The first land was also a place of observation and reflection for the Great Spirit. It was not enough to simply bring land into existence. It had to be nurtured, shaped, and understood. The Spirit watched over the process, guiding gently, observing carefully, and allowing the animals to act with agency. This reminds us that creation is not a unilateral act of force, but a shared journey where guidance, support, and collaboration matter as much as courage and effort. The land, once fully emerged, would host life, sustain communities, and become the stage upon which future stories of humans, animals, and spirits would unfold. In the patterns of rivers, the rise of hills, and the placement of rocks, one can perceive the order that began with these earliest acts. The world, though still fragile, carried the first lessons of balance and interdependence. Water and land, animal and spirit, all coexisted in a careful harmony that set the stage for what was to come. The first land was not complete, but it had the foundation of resilience. From these humble beginnings, ecosystems would flourish, species would diversify, and life would take root in ways both subtle and profound. As the waters receded and the land gained definition, the story emphasizes continuity. The courage of the muskrat, the steadfastness of the turtle, and the guidance of the spirit were not isolated moments, but threads woven into a larger tapestry. Each element of the first land, every hill, every stream, every patch of soil, carries the echo of those earliest actions. The myth reminds us that beginnings, though small and tentative, have consequences that ripple outward across time. Every new life, every forest, every river owes its existence to the patient, careful work of those first collaborators. The emergence of the first land also represents a shift in possibility. Where once the waters were infinite and unformed, now the land provided space for growth, shelter, and exploration. It became a place of opportunity, where life could flourish, where patterns could develop, and where the interplay of creatures and environment could give rise to the richness of the world. This story teaches that creation is never static. It unfolds in stages, each dependent on the previous, and every step requires awareness, courage, and collaboration. In the quiet stillness following the land's emergence, one can almost hear the heartbeat of the new world, the soft pulse of rivers, the rustle of the first plants, the careful movements of animals exploring their new home. It is a world shaped by courage, patience, and cooperation, where even the smallest contributions matter, and where the balance between water and earth sustains life. The first land stands as a testament to the principles that guide all creation: persistence, humility, care, and interconnectedness. Thus, the first land emerged not as a sudden spectacle, but as a gradual, deliberate, and collaborative act. From the bravery of the muskrat to the steadfastness of the turtle, from the guidance of the Great Spirit to the efforts of all creatures, a world took shape from the endless waters. It was a foundation for life, a stage for growth, and a reminder that creation is a process, a journey, and a shared responsibility. Every hill, every stream, every stone carries the memory of those first acts and the enduring lessons they teach. That courage, persistence, and cooperation can turn the smallest beginnings into a world full of life and possibility. With the first land now risen from the endless waters, shaped and nurtured by the courage of the muskrat, the steadfastness of the turtle, and the careful guidance of the Great Spirit, the world held a new promise. Solid ground, hills, valleys, and rivers stretched into existence, yet life had not yet taken root. The land was still silent, the wind unaccompanied by song, and the trees unbending because they did not yet exist. It was a world poised on the edge of possibility, waiting for the spark that would awaken it, for the first breath of life to stir in its soil, its waters, and its skies. The Great Spirit gazed upon the land, knowing that creation's work was far from complete. The animals had done their part, shaping and stabilizing the earth, but the world required more than form. It required vitality, movement, and the miracle of life. From the soil and water, the Spirit called forth the seeds of existence, invisible to the eye, yet charged with potential. Within these first seeds lay the blueprint for forests, rivers teeming with fish, and the creatures that would roam the land. Life would not emerge fully formed. It would grow, evolve, and adapt, a process as deliberate and careful as the formation of the land itself. From the waters, the first fish appeared, gliding through the still rivers and lakes that had gathered in the valleys. They carried the rhythm of the ocean into the new land, linking water and earth in a cycle that would sustain life for generations. Birds were next, rising on wings that lifted them into the sky, their cries filling the empty air with sound, and their movements guiding the growth of forests by scattering seeds. On the land, small mammals began to explore, their curiosity shaping the contours of the soil and contributing to the balance of the emerging ecosystems. Every creature, every plant, every ripple of water played a role in the formation of life, each action echoing the careful intention of the Great Spirit. Life, once awakened, did not emerge in chaos, but in harmony. The Spirit observed, adjusting, guiding, and ensuring that every creature had its place, every seed its soil, and every river its path. The first forests spread slowly, trees rising from the earth as if conscious of the animals that would inhabit them. Grass and flowers followed, covering the land in patterns of growth that invited life to flourish. Predators and prey, plants and pollinators, water and land, all began their delicate dance in a balance that reflected the same cooperation that had shaped the first land. There was patience in this unfolding, a slow and measured growth that mirrored the rhythm of the universe itself. Life is not instant, it is gradual, deliberate, and responsive. The first leaves unfurled, the first roots dug deep into the soil, and the first streams teemed with tiny fish. With each passing moment, the world grew richer, more complex, and more beautiful. Even the smallest creatures mattered, for the tiniest action, an insect burrowing in the soil, a bird dropping a seed, a fish stirring the water, could ripple outward, shaping the balance of life across the land. The formation of life was also a lesson in resilience. Not every seed would sprout, not every creature would survive, yet each attempt carried meaning. Life persisted not because it was easy, but because it was nurtured, observed, and allowed to adapt. The Spirit's role was not to force perfection, but to ensure that potential had the space to grow. And so, life unfolded as a partnership between the divine and the creatures themselves, a shared creation that required patience, care, and the understanding that every being contributes to the balance of the whole. From the forests to the rivers, life began to thrive in patterns of interdependence. Fish fed the birds. Birds scattered seeds that grew into trees. Animals grazed, hunted, and fertilized the soil. Rivers nourished forests, and trees protected streams. This intricate web of relationships reflected the earliest lessons of cooperation, patience, and humility. Creation was no longer just about land or water. It was about sustaining the delicate balance that allows all living beings to flourish together. The world, now alive, was full of movement and song. The wind carried the fragrance of flowers, the rivers sang their endless course, and the animals interacted in cycles that would repeat for generations. Each element of life, from the smallest insect to the largest mammal, was connected, contributing to the ongoing story of the earth. It was a living testament to the principle that creation is not a one-time act, but a continuous process, one that requires courage, cooperation, and care at every step. As life took root upon the first land, a new chapter of creation unfolded, the quiet, patient spread of plants and forests. From the tiniest seeds scattered by birds and carried by the wind, the earth began to bloom. Grass softened the soil, holding it against the flow of rivers. Shrubs and wildflowers appeared in bursts of color, transforming the once barren land into a tapestry of life. Trees, tall and enduring, slowly rose, their roots anchoring the soil, their branches reaching for the sky. With every sprout, the land itself seemed to breathe, responding to the harmony of life that now moved across it. The forests became a home, a sanctuary, and a stage for all living creatures. Birds nested among the branches, insects hummed among the leaves, and animals roamed freely beneath the protective canopy. Each plant, each tree, contributed not only to the beauty of the world, but also to its balance, forming a network of interdependence that mirrored the earliest lessons taught by the spirit and the animals. Life was no longer isolated. It was woven together, resilient and enduring. This growth reminds us that creation is a continuous process, one that requires patience, care, and collaboration. Even the smallest seed has the power to shape the future, just as the first acts of courage and persistence shape the land itself. Forests are living proof that with time, attention, and nurture, life transforms, flourishes, and sustains itself. The story of the spread of plants and forests carries a lesson for us all. Every action, every choice, and every effort contributes to the world we inhabit. If you enjoyed this journey through the origins of life and creation, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that reveal the mysteries of our world and the timeless wisdom hidden in nature's beginnings.